Up next, another corporate Bitcoin success story, Metaplanet. I'm excited to introduce Simon Gerovich. He is the CEO. He has a very interesting backstory. His father was a diplomat and he got to live all over the world, but he actually lost his initial Bitcoin on Mt. Gox. And if you're familiar with Metaplanet, it is Japan's first publicly traded Bitcoin treasury company. After pivoting away from hotel development and operations, Simon led Metaplanet's adoption of Bitcoin as its core treasury reserve asset, making it the top performing listed equity in the world in 2024. And they are excited to welcome everyone to the Bitcoin Hotel in early 2026 in Tokyo, Japan. Welcome, Simon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Simon Gerovich, president of Metaplanet. It's an honor and privilege to be here today. A year ago, we were a small, publicly listed company on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, struggling to survive. Today, we've transformed into Asia's leading Bitcoin treasury company and the top performing listed equity in 2024. I'm excited today to share with you the story of our transformation. I graduated from Harvard with a degree in applied mathematics. I started my career as an equity derivatives trader at Goldman Sachs in Tokyo, a background that has proven to be quite useful today. In hindsight, I probably left a bit too early, but I wanted to pursue an entrepreneurial route. So I left Goldman, moved to Thailand, and started a budget hotel company. We grew that to 30 properties across Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan. In Japan, we realized that it was very important to be a listed company, to get funding from banks and get investments from investors. And so we ended up acquiring a majority stake in a public company. The move unlocked financing for us, but most importantly, gave us the public company that would soon become Metaplanet. March 2020 delivered the ultimate left tail shock. Travel collapsed, hotel rooms went empty overnight, and revenue vanished. In many of our markets, our hotels were forcibly closed. We didn't get support from the government, and our lenders were less than friendly. As an entrepreneur, revenue being down 100% was not a scenario that I'd considered in my wildest dreams. We tried our best to stay afloat. We restructured, renegotiated with lenders, and sought emergency financing from shareholders and investors. With much difficulty, we managed to survive. We weren't stronger yet, but we were awake, ready to search for something indestructible. I first discovered Bitcoin in Japan back during the Mt. Gox days and held a modest position that I watched rise, fall, and rise again. It wasn't until the depths of COVID, with time on my hands, that I first listened to a series of podcasts by Michael Saylor. Bitcoin answered two questions that nearly destroyed us in 2020. What happens if your cash flow disappears? And what if a dollar is really not worth that if the money printer continues? That's when I realized we needed an indestructible asset. No counterparty risk, no jurisdictional risk, no debasement risk, no political risk, no earnings risk, and no pandemic risk. What surprised me was that although Michael had laid out a playbook for listed companies all around the world to follow, no one had the courage yet to implement it. Now, in April 2024, our board of directors convened an extraordinary meeting of shareholders and voted unanimously to amend the articles of incorporation of the company to make Bitcoin front and center of our corporate treasury strategy. From that point onwards, Bitcoin would become our primary reserve asset and unit of account. And going forward, all capital decisions, whether equity, debt, strategic investments, excess liquidity, would all be evaluated on a Bitcoin base. 30 days later, we published what we now call the Bitcoin Manifesto, which we published to the Tokyo Stock Exchange system, and laid out a very clear path going forward. We would utilize all the capital market tools available to acquire Bitcoin. We also adopted BTC yield as our core KPI, as our ultimate measure of success, an immutable scorecard by which management, directors, and stakeholders can measure success of the strategy. With courage and conviction, we made the leap, and our shareholders were ready to follow the journey to see what was possible. 1 year later, we executed a pivot and the market responded. We now have 5,000 Bitcoin, Metaplanet is the #1 performing stock in the world in 2024, and our market cap has grown over 100x in less than a year. Bitcoin didn't just save our company, it completely redefined what was possible as well as the trajectory. When we began the pivot, we had just over 10,000 shareholders. Today, that number has grown to almost 64,000 shareholders. We didn't realize this at the outset, but Metaplanet has become the most tax-efficient way for Japanese retail to get exposure to Bitcoin. By buying directly, that incurs up to 55% capital gains tax. And that is versus buying in a retirement account where it's tax-free. Our goal is to become the most held stock in Japan. The current record is held by Toyota, which has about 900,000 shareholders, and I'm confident that we can get to 1 million shareholders over the next few years. Now let me take you to the left side of this slide, our old world as hotel developers. It could take over a year to find the right site, another year for design and permitting, 2 more years for construction, and several more to reach stabilized performance. From start to finish, the whole process can take 5 to 10 years. And in that time, cash flows were held hostage to interest rates, construction costs, tourism cycles, and even health scares. Anything that could go wrong often did. Now look at the right. This is what it looks like operating on a Bitcoin standard. We can raise capital today, convert it to Bitcoin tomorrow, and announce a rebased balance sheet the following day. Bitcoin per share accretion doesn't take years. It happens immediately. What once took a decade to deliver returns now happens in 24 hours. Volatility, once a threat, has now become the catalyst that fuels new capital formation. And that's why we chose to pivot from cranes and concrete to code and cryptography. Metaplanet trades at 140% realized volatility, about 5 times the Nikkei 225. That might scare most company executives, but for us, volatility is fuel. We've engineered a financial system that turns volatility into capital, capital into Bitcoin, and as our Bitcoin holdings grow, they feed back into volatility, round after round after round. Japan doesn't have the same flexible capital markets as you do in the US, and there's no ATM equity offering available to Japanese companies. But we've built something even better. In January this year, we launched the largest moving strike warrant program in Asian capital markets history. And thanks to our volatility, it was priced at a 0% discount to the previous day's close, while other companies are raising capital at an 8 to 10% discount. So how have we done so far? We've raised $500 million in equity capital, all of which has been allocated to Bitcoin accumulation, which makes us the #1 equity issuer in Japan in 2025 across 4,000 listed companies. We've only just begun, and this is where we begin to accelerate. Now, these are our 3 core KPIs, and I imagine for many of you in this room, already quite familiar, and they're critical, not just for us, but for every Bitcoin treasury company. Now, BTC yield shows effectively a company how quickly they're increasing their Bitcoin per share. BTC gain measures the net increase in the company's total holdings, accounting for dilution. And BTC dollar gain reflects the dollar value of the BTC gain. And together, these metrics allow us to quantify how effectively we're executing our Bitcoin strategy and give our shareholders a transparent, Bitcoin native way to track value accretion. Now, our guidance for 2025 is a BTC yield of 35% per quarter. In Q1, we achieved 95%, so we're 3 times that target already. And as a result, our BTC yield year to date is 121%, which means that we've more than doubled our Bitcoin per share so far this year. Now, every financing decision we make is based on a single question. Does it increase Bitcoin per share? If the answer is no, we don't move forward. Now, so far, we've executed 3 major capital increases, a rights issue last summer, our first moving strike warrant transaction in December, and now a second larger moving strike warrant program that's underway. Now, this chart shows the results. After each raise, Bitcoin per share has increased. And in total, we've grown it 13x since Q2 of last year. That's the standard that we hold ourselves accountable to, every transaction, every round measured in Bitcoin terms. Now, Bitcoin per share tells the story of precision. This tells the story of scale. Bitcoin didn't just change our capital structure, it transformed the entire company. What you're looking at here is the growth of our market cap alongside the value of our Bitcoin treasury. In April 2024, our market cap was a tiny fraction of where it is today. Now our Bitcoin holdings alone are worth almost $500 million, more than 30 times our market cap when we began. That's the exponential outcome of executing on a Bitcoin standard. Now, this is a chart of our historical MNAV. The skeptic would say that we're overvalued because we are trading at a premium to our Bitcoin holdings. But that loses sight of how quickly we're growing our Bitcoin per share and our NAV. Last time our MNAV was at these levels was last November. And since then, our stock price has doubled and our NAV is up 5 times. Meanwhile, our BTC yield is compounding at a staggering 28% per month over the past 12 months. Most companies compound earnings slowly over years. We're compounding Bitcoin monthly in a way that's measurable, scalable, and transparent to every shareholder. Now, it's still early days, and traditional finance doesn't yet have the right tools to properly value Bitcoin treasury companies. Too many are focused on multiple to NAV and overlook the value that's being created under the hood. Now, so far this year, we've added over 2,200 Bitcoin to our balance sheet through disciplined treasury operations. That translates to $213 million year to date. On an annualized basis, that would be $640 million, which is effectively profit, though it doesn't show up in a traditional P&L. Call it what you like, accretive BTC, unrealized return, or even a tax-free dividend to shareholders reinvested onto the balance sheet. At current prices, we're trading at the equivalent of just 2.3 times earnings based on BTC gain. And yet the market still struggles to recognize what's actually being built here. I believe that Metaplanet and the entire category of Bitcoin treasury companies is undervalued. And I believe there's a real opportunity for analysts and allocators to rethink how value is measured in a Bitcoin-denominated world. Metaplanet is Japan's only publicly listed, regulated vehicle dedicated exclusively to Bitcoin. We serve as a secure, accessible entry point for domestic investors seeking exposure to the Bitcoin economy. Our platform combines capital markets with institutional discipline, aligned with the world's most recognized open source brand. Looking ahead, we see education as a critical part of accelerating adoption. Through our license for Bitcoin Magazine Japan, we aim to onboard 1 million people into Bitcoin in Japan. And not just into Bitcoin ownership, but into long-term understanding. And through the Bitcoin Hotel, located in central Tokyo, we're creating a physical hub for the community, a space for education, events, and real-world connection. We believe education, transparency, and accessibility are the key to building a durable on-ramp for the next generation. Now, this is our market cap over the past 20 years. For nearly 2 decades, it barely moved. Can you guess when we adopted the Bitcoin standard? In just 12 months, we've gone from near zero to over 1.4 billion in market cap. It's a reminder of what courage and conviction can do, and we owe that to our shareholders who believed in the pivot and backed us every step of the way. We also owe a generous dose of gratitude to Michael Saylor and Strategy for showing us the way. Now, I'd like to end by showing you a photo from exactly 1 year ago, our shareholder meeting on the day we adopted the Bitcoin standard. The room might look sparse to you, but for us, it was the best attended meeting we've had in a decade. Just 20 shareholders. But what followed was one of the most incredible shareholder meetings I've ever experienced. Wow. Thank you. This was our shareholder meeting just 6 weeks ago. Over 1,500 people attended, standing room only in the back, and an overflow room filled to the brim. A room full of Bitcoiners, shareholders, and supporters, all eager to learn, contribute, and be part of something bigger. You could feel the hope in the room, a collective desire for change, for something bigger. From 20 people last year to this, that's the Bitcoin effect. And this is just the beginning. Thank you.